It's a Bitcoin podcast. The only one that's making your money is you. Listen to the Bitcoin podcast. So hold on and listen to the Bitcoin podcast.
Nice. Did you guys notice the little thing that they added in our production studio?
Oh, what
Yeah.
happened?
There's a bar that shows you how long the video is going to play for. So you
I didn't
can
even
ready.
look. I wasn't paying attention. I was just jamming.
Yeah.
I was reading.
You guys miss rehearsals, you know.
I'm
Anyways, welcome to the Bitcoin podcast.
Welcome to the
episode
Bitcoin
number
podcast.
391. I am recording from an interrogation room today.
One day you'll have a proper setup again.
Yeah, man, they're doing a trim on my studio. Doing a trim.
Dang.
Almost there. 2 months away. Well, anyways, I'm the host that talks first. My name is D.
I am host to talk second. My name is Dr. Corey Petty.
And I'm the host that talks third, Jesse Broke.
Nice.
¿Cómo están? How are you?
I'll go first. I'm good. You know, it's been a year. 2022 has been a year. It's like that transition. Like I feel like the world is reminding itself that like COVID is mostly waning, and so there's a transition period now where like people are back out but still look confused. So
Yeah,
like,
people don't know how to be outside anymore.
yeah, and like the grocery store, they're like, "Hey, you touched that grape? Should I touch that grape?" And I'm like, "I don't fucking know. It's like it's the same rules as before, I think, right? Is it? I don't know. You know, there's transition period. Damn, I cursed
Do you
already.
eat grapes? Like, do you like before you buy it? Do you like rub it and then eat it?
Rub
Yes,
it.
I do.
Yeah.
Ooh, rubbing grapes.
Some people like rub the grape on their shirt and then they
Yeah.
try it before they buy the bag.
Yeah.
Okay, like you
it
wipe
puts
it off
the-
on your shirt.
Mhm.
Yeah, it puts the
Okay.
pesticides in your shirt.
Yeah, you're like,
you just rub.
rubbing
Yeah,
it,
rub.
like-
No, that would be a little bit weird.
I must make a wish on this grape before I eat it. No. I do. Sometimes I just do it in my hands, which defeats the purpose. But I just
yeah, sure.
sorry, Jesse and I can talk about fruit for a very long time. We once had shows that were sponsored by a dried fruit manufacturer that never actually sponsored us.
Yeah.
We reached out
One
to
day
them.
we'll actually have sponsors again when we
Yeah.
drop our ass and get some.
Anyways, this is the Bitcoin podcast where we don't talk about Bitcoin. We talk about pretty much whatever we want in crypto. Sometimes life. Sometimes you'll
We're
learn
wrapping
a
it up.
lesson.
We're gonna like just say like it's over now because Bitcoin's dead.
Is Bitcoin dead? Bitcoin died?
Yeah.
Oh no, that's the sentiment. That's the sentiment right now. That usually means we're close to a bottom. We're like 3-4 months away from a bottom. So
Here in CoinDesk it says Bitcoin's dead.
on CoinDesk, it says
Like, ooh, I bet there's something on like Hacker News.
CoinDesk is saying Bitcoin is
Or,
dead. Oh wow, that's impressive.
I'm checking Hacker News to see if there's anybody that's saying like Bitcoin's dead.
CoinDesk wouldn't say Bitcoin is dead.
I didn't say
Let me see.
CoinDesk. I said Hacker News.
Oh, okay. Yeah, usually right around the time. So, audience, if you're listening for the, you're new out there and you stumbled across the Bitcoin podcast, episode 391. By listening to episode 391, it should tell you that you're very late to the crypto game. And this is a weekly podcast. But I don't want to make you feel bad. But Bitcoin dies a lot. I think there's a website that calculates it, and I think Bitcoin has died almost 1,000 times in 10 years. So it's about 100 times a year Bitcoin dies because that's the volatility of it, right? People, as soon as the price goes down like more than 7%, somebody's like, it's Bitcoin is dead. It's never going to work. It's a scam. It's a this, it's a that. It's for
What's the
dark
current year over
web.
year right now? What was it last year from today?
That's a good question for Yagi and I's chart. Let me see if it's up to date. Give me a second.
There's no way that's up to date. He's keeping that thing up to date. He deserves a medal.
He does it for fun. But let me see. I gotta do a little Google search in here. Do a little search in my little drive here. See what we got going on. There it is. Ooh. Come on. When's the
Looks
last
like
time you
around
updated?
this time it was.
He has not updated it in quite some
28
time.
to 27,000 around this time last year. A little higher. In the mid 30s. Can't tell in
So it
this.
was on May 17, 2021, it was 43.5.
That's a 50% gainer year over year. To the negative.
We are 30.4 days. We're not real time. It's like end of day.
So,
really.
So what's awesome is if you look at the year over year, there's like, so this will give, I'm trying to put some hopium out there price wise, just throw it out there. Jesse doesn't like opium. You can see his face. He was like, ugh, it tastes disgusting.
No, I'm like, my nose is itchy.
There's about an 80% chance. Oh, okay. He's got itchy nose.
Yeah.
There's an 80% chance with Bitcoin, if you buy money today, it will be worth more tomorrow. That 20%, yeah, on a year over year. That's what Yagi's numbers say. That's what the numbers.
That's what you have in your chart. Is as based on historical data. If you buy it today,
based on historical
next year,
data,
you're 80% likely.
You're 80% likely to your $1 will be worth $1 plus instead of $1 minus. That being said, even with 80% likely, those 20% chances hurt like a motherfucker, right? Because this is a very risky asset. So hashtag not investment advice. You should seek guidance on how to invest in risky assets before you start treating all of this crypto as a great investment tool.
Your chart doesn't go back like for many years, right?
It just goes back. It's actually severely outdated, but
What I'm getting at is like it's not even
from
anywhere near
2012 to
macro.
2020.
Yeah. So it's not even
It doesn't have 2021 or 2022 in here, so it'd be easy to get. We just got to ping Yagi, but it's still following the same pattern. There's some heavy drops.
Yeah.
Heavy drops, and then followed by heavy gainers. So now one thing I think is interesting to look at, and I haven't looked at prior to show, would be the what's that thing that they call the it's got like the goes up. It's got the rainbow chart. You see it all over the place with the rainbow chart, and it's like, hey, on the low end, the price is here, and then you know what I'm talking about, right, Jesse?
Forecasting, like extrapolating
it's
data.
Not forecasting. It's a
like
price forecast, but then it shows the Bitcoin price in relation to the forecast. No.
It's like it has like a based on a given model, it'll have error bars and it'll show kind of the margin of error as you go forward based on like the projection and the error going in different ways.
Yeah, but I think what indicator is that? Oh, it's like
there's a bunch of them.
I found it. I'm gonna put that shit up on here. I'm put it up here. Give me a sec. Sorry, sometimes I like to go into a random page.
I like how you were thinking a different one. I'm
thinking about a very different thing.
That's what I'm saying. Like, this is not.
Corey, you're thinking of something probably real. I'm thinking of this as something that somebody made up a long time ago, and they like to look at it to make.
Like, how is that rainbow?
Well, look at these color categories here. We have maximum bubble territory, sell, seriously sell, FOMO intensifies, is this a bubble, hodl, still cheap, accumulate, buy, basically a fire sale.
Yeah, but like if you look at the trajectory, right, or like the arc of that rainbow, like it's not a quadratic. Like, what is that? Like what is that? What is that modeled after?
Doesn't it look like that's a logarithmic function?
I don't know what that means.
That's what
an algorithmic function.
I said logarithmic. I said logarithmic.
Oh, is it algorithmic? I was like, that's not a word.
No, that's a logarithmic function.
I mean, the scale is log on the y-axis.
Yes.
That's a linear
the
scale
pattern.
on the x-axis.
I'm just looking at this pattern, and what I see is that those highs are getting lower, and it's all capitulating down to the blue line.
So there's some trends there. Like as you have each halvening, you're at a typical low, and you have a drop in the middle. And so we're experiencing what would be the drop in the middle. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, but it looks like
I mean, there's no like indication that
no. Like what I'm saying is
historical
like
price is exactly what happens, but there is a trend.
if you look at the halvening, that spike at the tippy top it used to be above the maximum bubble territory, and then this halvening here in whatever year that is, 2017, 2016, then the spike was in the rainbow. Then in the other halvening, the spike was in the middle of the rainbow. Right. So in the next happening, if you take that trend, the next spike is going to be it's not even going to be in the middle of the rainbow. It's going to be like the price is going to settle in at like 55, 60,000.
How do they determine these boundaries between scales, right?
It's a great question. Let me see if
Is that
there's
arbitrary?
No, there's some documentation here.
Oh, okay. We got more.
Disclaimer is very important.
So here's some disclaimers. The rainbow chart is not investment advice. Past performance is not indicative. Wait, y'all are looking at what I'm reading, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have to like
Color bands follow logarithmic regression introduced by Bitcoin Talk user Trollalalala 2014. You know it's real.
That's how you know it's real.
But are otherwise completely arbitrary and without any scientific basis. We never changed them though.
In other
That's
words,
awesome.
it will only be correct until one day it isn't anymore. By the way,
I like that. I like the realness of that explainer.
Here's the
Look at the
Ethereum
Ethereum one.
chart.
Oh, it fell out of the band.
We've got some pain. We've got some pain coming. Yeah.
Go to the link that showed what Trollalalala said in 2014. That was a long time ago.
In this OP, I'll always post the last updated chart. Update 2017. The last time
Calculate
we updated
today's trend line value here.
I want to see how much Bitcoin went into this. Bitcoin.
There's nothing. There's nothing that shows you like non-linear, so logarithmic regression. Okay, whatever. I give up.
Here's what he did, Corey, and this is something that, I mean, it's doable. It's just like what if you're looking at what ifs. He probably took
You know what isn't scientific? Any of the things you're about to say.
No, it's not. It's what if. It's like, do you know that there's a whole
people use this and they use it as a reasoning to buy stuff or sell stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. But there's a whole like chapter of study in business that's like in business math. It's called what if analysis.
Called what? What was it?
It's called what if analysis. But how else are you supposed to define business objectives? You say, okay, this is what I want my profit and loss to look like. So what if sales went up like this? What happens to all this other stuff? What if all of a sudden our labor costs went up 15%? What happens to my profit? Right? You do what if analysis. You try and predict.
You know how you get your profit from there? Because you have at least an algorithm that shows the connections between those things and what the dependencies are.
Yes.
I'm looking for that here. I don't see it.
Oh, he probably just took like one logarithmic regression that
probably like the thickness of a line having to correspond to whatever Microsoft Paint stroke he was using.
Well, let's just see if we can figure it out. I mean, all this is a logarithmic function with different bounds.
Okay, but what does that mean? It's on log scale. That's what you're looking at. The y-axis is on a logarithmic scale. The x-axis is on a linear scale.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's what's logarithmic about it. The rainbow has nothing that I can see that has any type of like reasonable algorithm.
Couldn't we deduce it if we knew the curve here? Each one of these bands is two curves.
We're not doing that on this episode.
Yeah, sorry, audience. We obviously we're just trying to make sure you have a good time while you drive. But each one of these bands is just two curves. That's it.
Oh, we got a comment. Ripple degenerate. We don't care about this. It's on 1310, the ticket. He must be in Dallas. Yep, there you go.
1310.
Wow, I can't believe I remember that. Right now, I'm talking about Bitcoin. It says the price
All
will
right.
be 1 to 2 million within the decade.
Let me tell you
Because
something, Ripple Degenerate.
who cares?
That guy's wrong. So you heard it here first. That guy's wrong. Those numbers don't make sense.
I mean, well, okay, actually, so if you follow this out, if you would extrapolate this particular line here,
Jesse's getting more
Out?
and more bored by the second. It's falling back into his chair. Go ahead.
just like, but based on what this guy said, Ripple Degenerate. So there you go. If you extrapolate this plot here, it will be 1 to 2 million by the end of the decade. And okay, if the price follows this trend throughout the decade.
Yeah.
Look, the top line is 500,000.
You go. You're trying to justify.
No. This is. Oh yeah.
Wait, why are you justifying the price by
It's
Rainbow
logarithmic
Road,
scale.
Corey?
So like,
How did
it
he
goes
suck
up
you
real
into
quick.
this?
There's no justification. It's follow this stupid graph. Like when it's like,
Sorry.
So if you're new to the Bitcoin podcast, we don't necessarily subscribe to looking at charts and trying to predict prices. I do know that is some voodoo science out there. I do know there's a lot of people right now throwing chicken bones into barbecue pans, and they're like, "Oh, okay, the thigh bone touched the breastbone. That must mean the price of Bitcoin is going to go." I know people do that. It's stupid, and
I think there's a justification for using a logarithmic scale on the y-axis and estimating growth logarithmically, because exponential growth is a part of how you usually model growth, at least in terms of like epidemics and stuff like that and ecology. So that's why they tend to use it. Well, I mean, growth models tend to use exponentials for growth and decay. So I'd imagine economics has similar types of things. I don't know economic models for projecting price growth.
Well, now you do. It's called Rainbow Road.
Apparently Ripple Degenerate has also said, he also says that athletes will want to get their contracts in Bitcoin, which has already happened.
Yeah, but if you notice
right now,
that trend,
am I right?
if you notice that trend, it's not exactly athletes that they can afford to take their contract in Bitcoin. Like Tom Brady is
their first year in millions, and then they take the rest in Bitcoin. That's not a bad deal.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, I'll take it in Bitcoin. Why not? Right. So, like Tom Brady took his pay in Bitcoin last year, but Tom Brady's also been in the NFL longer than anyone should ever be in the NFL, and he's worth a lot of money. So he was like, "Oh, what's that? More money I don't need? Yeah, I'll take it. However, give it to me in Skittles. I don't give a fuck." Like he doesn't care. Oh, hey, it's okay.
You heard it here first. 18 minutes in. Cut that shit out.
Yeah, please cut that out, Alicia. That's not good. So, anyways, let's get to some other crypto news. I want to get into something that actually makes Jesse sit up perky in his chair, right? And that's something that we've always shied away from getting into technicals on this show because why not? But I think we're moving into an arena where why not? Let's talk about the stuff that nobody wants to talk about. And that is, what is like the nitty gritty difference between proof of work and proof of stake? So these people listening to our show, I know we've done this in the past. We compared them in the past, but we've done it like not granularly, right? And
I've done a pretty granular thing.
Hey, just give me a second. I'm going to tell these dogs shut the fuck up.
Gone granular a couple times.
Y'all do y'all thing. I got to kick these dogs out of here.
Teach me something I don't know.
I mean, I don't know what you don't know.
Teach me about DHT tables and how discovery mechanisms are useful for finding peers.
Distributed hash tables? That's a little weedy for right now. Like even like proof of work versus proof of stake is probably a more reasonable thing to talk about than distributed hash tables.
Damn it. All right, where do you want to take it? What do you want to talk about?
We can talk about.
All right, what
he wants to hear about proof of work, proof of stake, but like I've said,
hold on, what do you guys want to talk about?
He asked me about distributed hash tables, which is probably a little too in the weeds.
Is it though? Why not distribute? Yeah. So, can I guess what a distributed hash table is?
Yeah.
Okay. The rows are hashes and the columns are hashes. Okay. I never really kind of looked it up, but that's okay. He's shaking his head already. Okay. Next guess. The rows are identifiers to a hash and the columns are separate identifiers to the same hash.
I don't know. What are you talking about? Like,
I'm just trying to figure it out by using like context clues, man. Like stick with me now. All right. So if each cell of the table is a hash, then what's identifying you to get okay, let's just take a table. Let's take a multiplication table. If
what's a hash
4
table? First off, what's a hash table?
That's what I'm trying to guess, bro. I don't
Okay.
know. But I'm trying to guess, I'm trying to this is the path of learning here. Hash table. If I had to guess, a hash table is obviously a table of hashes. But the rows have identifiers and the columns have separate identifiers to allow you to go, okay, that's one thing and that's another thing. And then if I trace them, this is the hash that I need.
No.
Okay. What is a hash table then? Because that's a terribly not intuitive name.
So a hash table is a content addressed table. So it's a key value store where the hash is the key to the content. So you take a piece of content, you hash it, that becomes the key in the table. So like it's for looking things up. If you know the content of the hash, you can look it up.
Yeah, like a
So
table.
IPFS is technically a distributed hash table. The DHT is the way you distribute that across a network, and then how you find information across that thing. So like you can have these massive things that have like key value stores that have an efficient way of looking things up because if you know the content and you know the key, and you can ask a network for a piece of content, and then if they don't have it, there's methods for searching a distributed hash table that are efficient for like, I don't have it, but I know how to get it from my nearest neighbors.
Use
It's
Merkle
based on
trees for
this
that?
lookup metric or like nearest neighbor metric of closeness, which has nothing to do with like geographic closeness of peers. It has to do with like the arbitrary metric for closeness for most DHTs, like Kademlia, which is a implementation of distributed hash table, is you XOR the content. There's a way of XORing it. So like basically you have this metric for
You
closeness.
XOR hashes?
Yeah.
You XOR the hash of the content, or do you
See,
XOR
look up
the
Kademlia
content
here,
before hash?
implementations. I'm
Hold
here
up.
right
Can
now.
we slow down for a second?
So like right now, you use these things as like peer discovery in a network. So like if you're joining the the Bitcoin network, the Ethereum network, you need to find nodes that are reasonable to join. So you use a distributed hash table to find out closest peers to you. And by close, it's not geographic. It's just closest to what your node ID is.
Now, do you remember how the closest is calculated? Is the
So it's
XORing?
a way of like figuring out identifiers to search for closest peers and then joining a network and something like that. So like
You
they're
remember
used
the math,
for discovery a lot.
the logical operation of XORing what two things?
Yeah, there we go. In order to look up the value associated with a given key,
Mhm.
the algorithm explores the network in several steps. Each step will find nodes that are closer to the key until the contacted node returns the value or no more closer nodes are found. This is very efficient. Like many other this is for Kademlia, which is an implementation. Like many other DHTs, Kademlia contacts only O log n, which is a like order of log n nodes during the search out of a total of n nodes. So like if you have n nodes that you have a distributed piece of data across, you only have to query a few nodes to get to any piece of data. So it's a very fast way, efficient way of looking up any piece of data in a very large data set.
Interesting. Now, I'm going to try to break this down for my own learning here. Usually when I'm handed a table, I'm also handed a set of instructions. It says this is how you use the table, right? So for example, Chilton Auto Books. I don't know if you guys know those. Back in the day, they were popular when you could work on your own car. There were all kinds of tables in there because manufacturers built all kinds of fasteners and all kinds of engines. And you look at the table and it would be like, okay, I have a Toyota Celica and it's year 87. So the bolts that were used were this one. So I need this kind of ratchet, right? It was a table. what does a hash table? I know I'm probably not a human's not using it. A computer is using it. But what instructions is the computer given on how to use the table? What's it for?
That the key to any piece of content is its hash.
Okay. And a hash is a random characters. We're talking cryptography.
You know what a hash is?
Isn't it like a function? It's a cryptographic function
So
that
if you
creates
take
a hash.
any piece of data,
You get a same
the
length.
concept you get a what you do is take a piece of data. It doesn't matter what length it is.
Yes.
Just like a file that you wrote, some file on your computer. What doesn't matter, right?
Yes.
And you hash it with a hash function. There's a bunch of different types of hash functions. Don't worry about that.
Very true.
And the result that you get is a fixed length piece of data.
Yes.
And this is usually like what would be considered like garbage. Like it looks random. It looks like just a random fixed length piece of data, right?
Mhm.
And that is what could be known as a fingerprint of the data. And so for a hash table, you use the hash of a given piece of data as the key in the table. So there are only two columns. One is the key, the other is the value. The value is the data. The key is the hash of that data.
They
So
usually store them in like.
content addressed storage.
Do they
So
usually
if you
store them
have
dynamic?
content, you know what the key is to look it up. What'd you say?
Got it. So it's like Dewey Decimal for shit stuff.
Yeah, it's an
like
easy way to
coded
understand
Dewey
how to-
Decimal, and then you distribute it so that multiple parties, as long as they know certain parts, could find their way to the content.
I want to say that IPFS uses Cadelia.
Man, they don't even teach the Dewey Decimal System to kids anymore. Like,
Anymore.
holy cow, dude.
Yeah, it may have switched. There's a bunch of different discovery mechanisms now that people can use, but the majority of most peer-to-peer networks use Cadelia because it's an efficient way to search a bunch of nodes who hold pieces of a large data set. But it has some privacy issues. So like you always know what data a given IP has based on how it returns. It's like if you watch network traffic, if you like do forensics on network traffic, you can see what nodes in the network hold what pieces of data. And that's a privacy concern. So like they're working on new ways of doing discovery such that you can query the network for a piece of data, get something back without exposing who holds what.
Mm. Can you imagine that the librarian used to be Google? Like you'd walk into a library and be like, "Hey, where's that book?" And they'll be like, "Oh, that's the B7 723.55." And you're like, "Thank you." You go, you know what I'm saying?
It's very specific, very sectioned pieces of Google. He made himself a librarian.
Okay, Jesse, why were you wanting to talk about distributed hash tables?
He's learning about them.
Yeah.
I see.
For messaging. Yeah.
So the reason why I wanted to talk about POW versus POS is because POW-POS is because obviously it's a very subtle nuance that almost no one is going to understand, right? And so, when you say, I've gotten a question as recently as this week, they're like, "Hey, do you mind?" I'm like, "Not really, but kind of." Like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Well, we validate." And they're like, "Is that mining?" And I'm like, "Not really, but kind of." Like, that's pretty much like, that's kind of my response to them. And like, they're like, "Well, can you go into detail?" And I'm like, "Well, why?" And they're like, "Oh, I just want to know. I read it on the website." And that's when I know now I'm wise enough to say, keep reading it on my website. I'm not going to keep talking to you. Right? Like, just kind of go the other direction. But
well, see, like the main thing that people don't get and misunderstand about what proof of work and proof of stake are is that they're anti-Sybil mechanisms. And what that means...
Sybil was a great show in the 80s, by the way.
That means that you can't... It's difficult to pretend to be more than one person on a network and have any like weight.
Does people know why that's important?
Yeah. So you can't like be one person, spin up a bunch of fake people and collude to alter the result of what people are trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You need to have a method that is resilient to that type of attack. so that people can't try and, force their way by making a bunch of fake identities. So proof of work does this by forcing you to pre-commit a bunch of computational power by doing this hashing algorithm and trying to, solve this basically incredibly massive Sudoku that is probabilistic in time. So like if you do it, if you hash a certain amount of times, you're statistically likely to get the answer within 10 minutes, or depending on how much hashing you have, right? And so that forces people to submit a bunch of real world energy in order to have a seat at the table to say, I'm adding things to the Bitcoin blockchain. That's proof of work and how Bitcoin uses it, right? And so how you do that hashing is dependent upon the network, and the timing and things like that are all dependent upon the network. For Bitcoin, it's 10 minutes. Hashing is the SHA-256. Proof of stake, on the other hand, doesn't take an external resource and pre-commit it to try and get a seat at the table to add to the blockchain. It uses the assets on the blockchain and locks them up and says, I've locked up this amount of token to participate in a distributed consensus algorithm that has a way of selecting who gets to add stuff to the blockchain, and we all vote on these things. That consensus algorithm, the rounds in which people participate to add things to the blockchain, is also differentiated across a bunch of different blockchains. So that's not necessarily always the case. So like when you think about proof of stake, it's you're using internal resources to participate in consensus. For proof of work, you're using external resources to participate in adding to the blockchain.
Can we talk about consensus mechanisms now?
That's very eloquent.
Sure.
That's a very articulate and eloquent way of putting it. External resources versus internal resources. So then the argument becomes,
one of the indicators, like one of the interesting things about that, by the way, is that with proof of work, because you're using external resources and you're pre-committing them in order to get a seat at the table, like a statistical seat at the table, you can't penalize anyone if they do something wrong. Because
they're penalizing themselves.
I mean, yeah. So for instance,
by wasting that energy,
an invalid block, like if they found the correct hash that solves the massive Sudoku puzzle, not really Sudoku, but it's appropriately reasonable analogy. And they submit something that the rest of the network rejects. So like they try and make a transaction that's invalid, then they've wasted all the energy up to solve that problem because the block just gets rejected and they keep moving. But if they're able to, take 51% of the network, then they can keep going and keep that type. And so you can make valid transactions and double spend them if you control a large portion of the network, 51%.
Why are we starting as the base
period of time? Proof of stake, on the other hand, one second, I'll get to that. Proof of stake, on the other hand, allows you to penalize people for doing bad things, commensurate to the degree of badness. So, like, because they have value locked up on the chain and a unique identifier with that value, everyone knows who gets to participate. And in the event that someone submits something that is bad or wrong, that doesn't follow the rules, you can penalize them and take their money away because it's all on chain. Another interesting, not complete property of this is that with proof of work, the ability to enter and exit as a validator or miner in the case of proof of work, you don't need to do anything. You just start mining. And if you get the answer, you get the answer. If you don't, then no one knows that you tried. In proof of stake, there's usually some ceremony of participation. So it takes a while to become part of the committee that's part of consensus, distributed consensus. And so there's some time frame in which you have to buy in. And if you want to go further into like different types of consensus mechanisms, then that drastically changes like how many people can participate and the timeframes in which you can get in and get out. What'd you say, Jesse?
I forgot my question.
That's why you gotta write down your questions and reserve them for the end of the presentation, Jesse. This is like
Oh no, I
listening,
remember it. I
active
remember it again.
listening.
What's the start point for the education or like the conversations that we'll have that are like somewhat technical for hashing it out?
What's the what?
Because like, for instance, this conversation, this kind of like mini lecture that you gave on proof of stake versus proof of work, like we've already done this like many times over the past few years. So like, what's the start point for people who are listening into hashing it out? Like, because we probably won't go over this stuff again, right?
We'll keep going over it until this. I've repeated this conversation forever, and I'll keep doing it because a lot of people who are in this ecosystem have no idea about these things.
Interesting.
And since the science keeps changing, our ability to participate in distributed consensus in new, more efficient ways, and the different types of distributed consensus we have, keep changing and getting better. And proof of work changes, and all these different efficiencies that we have. Like if you look at Chia, right? That's a different version of proof of work, but it uses a hard drive space as opposed to pure energy and hashing.
Mm-hmm. Proof of time and space. Is that what it is?
So like there's types of things like that like change the distribution and efficiency of how people can participate. We're going to have to keep having this conversation because a lot of people just jump in and they don't know, and they're going to keep asking. So like, I don't know, I write it down sometime, or we take note of when I do it. And when people ask, we point to it. It's like our ability to discover these conversations from the podcasts we have doesn't exist. So
yeah, we don't really tag and separate things.
I think we're going to have I think we'll be better at this and hashing it out because
it'll be curated.
We can do that on
allocating
YouTube,
more
right?
resources to doing it. So
like we'll do a little bit different curation on hashing it out. We've learned our lessons, and we're interested to show you guys how we evolve. Like it's gonna be some Pokemon level shit. I'm gonna tell you, like right now, you're gonna be like, "Holy cow!" They went from Pikachu.
I'd love it if we had like
avatars that evolve.
You look at when you look at YouTube stuff today, actually most podcasts today, they're time steps based on content, and so you can just go through the description and see like what was talked about, and that's searchable, right?
Yep.
That takes people doing that though, and means we have to pay someone.
It does that. Hindenburg.
Hindenburg does do that, but like
on the fly,
someone has to do it
while you edit it. Yeah, that's true. These are facts. The someone has to do it is a big thing.
Guess what I'm not going to do.
Guess what I know how to do and I'm not going to do. So there we go. But I've been looking in the private chat. Alicia was a librarian, so she knows how to be a human Google. Like, it's crazy.
Human Google. Can we start calling you that, Alicia? Human Google?
Human Google. You can still contact a New York librarian and ask questions at 917-ASK-NYPL. That is 917-ASK-NYPL. So for all the kids listening, please call your New York librarians to get answers to all the things that you. Golly, that's holy cow!
If
really like
people listen to us and they did this, the distribution of age of the normal calls that librarian gets is going to just get drastically more wild because they're only getting people calling that are like 70 and above.
Yeah, it's got to be pretty aged people.
We can call right now, guys. We can ask them.
No, we're not calling.
Call, but the thing is like you got to think about it. If you call a New York librarian, ask them how tall like Mount Fuji is, they're just gonna Google it, like right there on the phone. They
should tell you to Google it yourself because that's not what a librarian does. They don't answer your questions. They tell you where to find it.
Oh, okay. Well, you can still contact a New York librarian at 917-ASK-NYPL. For those of you that are too young to know how to put in the phone, ask NYPL. I don't know what to tell you. You can't do this. And then, and then for those of you that are old enough, that's the number. And they're open from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern. 6 p.m. is pretty late for a library. So, good on New York. But moving into other topics. So we've talked about distributed hash tables, and we've also discussed the nuance between proof of stake and proof of work. I think that at the end of the day, it's really cool how you deduce it down to one is internal resources, one's external resources.
That's the main factor which dictates the majority of the properties of those networks.
But I'd also like to add that the internal still has a small percentage of external.
How so?
Well, we run validators, and those cost us money. And
That's
they
not
cost somebody energy.
That's the
and they
same across
cost,
both, and that's going to be for any distributed computer network.
yeah, I just say it's lower.
Point is the value, where the value comes from for the anti-Sybil mechanism. How do you have a weight to your vote, right? And so for proof of work, it's how much hashing power you have. That's your weight. That's the more hashing power you have, the more probable you are to get the ability to produce blocks, which gives you a lot of influence over the blockchain, right? That's why people go after large pools, so they can basically do MEV extraction on things like that, right?
Mhm.
For proof of stake, it's how much you have locked up. That gives you the statistical likelihood to participate in any given vote and earn money from it.
Can you imagine people that lock shit
the
up?
weight of the anti-Sybil mechanism, not anything else.
You know, there's people out there, they lock up all this money in proof of stake systems and then never participate.
You have to. You do it you do it automatically. That's kind of like, if you're locking it up, you're not running. You have to run a node, otherwise you get penalized.
No, I mean well, maybe we're talking about two different things then. Like, for example, on Algorand, where you can lock up a certain amount of money and then you've got to vote in the governance of the Algorand network.
Yeah, some people just sit on it. They don't even vote and get
Yeah.
that percent APY.
You know, there's people like, oh, I'm lock up my money and then not do anything.
Because that's what I'm talking about earlier. Like, we're gonna keep having this conversation because people don't understand differentiation in these things. They just think like,
just
I
don't
locked
want
it
to.
up. It's fine. It's just like the other networks.
No. What's interesting is that like for instance, my dad has Algorand, and I tell him there's this governance thing that you get a percent APY. He's like, I don't care. I'm like, okay, like that's it. It's like you can get more of it if you do this, and you get to participate. He's like, I don't care.
It's so human nature, though.
Like,
Number go up. No.
It's so human nature because I get these huge. I've been on E-Trade now for over a decade. And, you slowly gather a okay looking portfolio of random stocks when you're like, I'm going to go and here's my random look at stock day. And you're like, oh, that one looks like a good price. And this might not be a scam. And you buy a little bit. It's in your portfolio, your brokerage account. But then you get these huge pamphlets of what that company's doing. And let me tell you what I do with those huge pamphlets. And those little bitty cards are like, hey, fill this out and send it back. And you get to vote. I'm like, garbage. Hard garbage. Some of them I do like a jump shot into the dumpster. I'm like, I'm not reading this pamphlet on your financials, and I'm not voting on shit. I'm going to look on E-Trade. If number go up, good. If number go down,
you are
back to the cash.
Incredibly good investor.
Back to the cash account it goes. We're talking about very small amounts of money here, right? We're not talking about like hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Obviously, if I had that much, like, I guess that just answers it solidifies what you just said, Corey. The more money you have in something, the more likely you are to pay attention to what it's doing, right? So
when it has like a significant effect on your life and your ability to secure the future of your life, you pay more attention to it.
Word up.
Maybe that's what you guys do. Like,
not me, baby. 100,000. Let's see how it works out in 5 years. Anyways, it's been a good talk. I always have more talks like this. I have a feeling you're gonna get way more technical when we move to hashing it out. I'm gonna be asking.
We're gonna hash stuff out. That's why the name is so good.
It's a good name.
So it's a table, but it doesn't have rows. It just has columns. I guess you can make tables like that. Whatever.
No,
you just told me like one column is obviously it has rows.
It's a 2-column table. Each row is an entry, a key value pair.
Sorry. I think in Excel sometimes. So I'm thinking like there's A's up top and there's numbers on the left. That's how I think. Like that's how I'm thinking. I'm like, what are the row headers? What are the column headers? But it's just columns.
Yeah, so
And you're right.
then you'd
There's
have.
rows and columns. You're right.
I mean, if you were to, it would just be a matrix, right, Corey? It's like a 2 by n dimensional matrix.
Correct.
I know. I remember when I did like image processing, like on pictures, like
Mhm.
it was like, you know how it's like matrices within matrices, right? Because it's like RGB intensities 0 to 255 within each pixel, and so like there's 3 matrices from 0 to 255 within 1 pixel, and then when you have like time too, then you have matrices within matrices within matrices, and then you can like make jokes about that. And that was always fun when I did that.
Mm.
Sorry, that's my story. Like,
My name is Jesse, and that's my TED Talk.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I appreciate it.
I just I don't know. No, linear algebra was fun for me, but it wasn't fun because I learned a lot. It was fun. It was fun. How do I say this without? I'm not gonna say it at all. Let's change stories because that was gonna get us canceled. I'm not gonna say it. Let's change to something different. Oh,
We already said this. What are you doing?
Oh yeah, we did say that. We were just
Yeah, here.
reacting. Okay. Next,
Wrap
thing.
it up.
Yeah, I guess it's been a good beefy.
It's a good
conversation. We
good
could
wrap up. Wrap
So
it up.
let's do some. Let's wrap this puppy up. Let's do some housekeeping here. So you can join the Patreon. You can become a patron by going to patreon.com/Bitcoin podcast and join one of those tiers and getting the stuff. Should we even be broadcasting that anymore? I don't even know if anybody checks that.
Daniel does.
Become a patron, patreon.com. All right. Next thing, Slack. Now, this is something that we do check every day, multiple times a day. It's becoming.
I probably
a
spend too
bloodline.
much time on it, to be honest.
Slack.
Probably spent
Oh,
too
snaps.
much time.
Did we get a new review? Yeah, we got a new
Did we?
review.
What?
Check this out. May 8th.
Oh, isn't it any good? Is it terrible?
No,
5
this one's
stars.
pretty juicy. This is pretty good. Review. Absolutely amazing podcast. 4 exclamation points. I've been listening for just over half a year now. Helped grow my knowledge about crypto and Web3 tremendously. 100% would recommend. 4 exclamation points. Joel_Stanger from Canada.
You Canadians are so nice.
Yeah. And this is
yeah.
I want
That was on May
to
8th.
yeah, I want to put this
Look
in
at
like
us.
look at us go.
Thank you, Joel. Join the Slack. Come say hello to us.
Yeah, we're gonna like put this.
Maybe he is in the Slack, and that's where the actual information came from.
Maybe there's a lot more information in the Slack than there is in this
That's what I'm
podcast. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, how did
hold up.
how
I'm
did
gonna
help?
put that up there.
Okay.
I want to put it up there so everybody can see. Yeah. We could have just made that up, but nevertheless, it's on there. So the reason that's on there is because what you see up there. How do I? There we go. Control your body.
You'll figure it out.
That purple symbol up there
I got you, boo.
is the podcast app symbol. So what we're asking you to do is on your podcast app, if you're listening to,
Just
you
switch.
know, like if you're listening to,
You keep trying to click
Hold
the
up.
buttons. There you go.
if you're listening to this on a podcast app and you're in a position where you can give us a rating on the podcast app to help us, you know, reach more people that like a nice chill podcast where we talk about things other than, oh my God, have you seen the price of CROT coin? It's really crot in the bed right now. I don't know. Stupid shit. Right? We talk about other stuff. What's next? What do we got to do? A little housekeeping here. What are we doing?
Matt Damon.
My Matt Damon. So shout out to Matt Damon. Oh, we need to hold before we do shout outs. Gotta give the rundown of the things that we're doing.
How'd you get
So-
that up there? Is that a banner?
It's a GIF. It's a GIF.
There it is. Flat out.
Oh yeah, it's a banner. So daddao.org, you can go to there. It's slow. Don't worry about the slowness.
Do we want to talk about it? Like
The growing
how-
pains? Should
Yeah.
we?
Do you want to like just say like, hey, we got stuck.
Yeah, we should talk about the growing pains of Dad Dow.
So we can say how like so Tim did the artwork, right?
The artwork is done. So what you're looking at there, are not what the NFTs are going to look like. You're looking at old school NFTs that possibly will be sold later. But just like a hey, be a part of Dad Dow history. Sorry, got a text that seemed like an emergency. Be a part of Dad Dow history. Dad Dow is a little bit stalled, right? We're at the point where we're like on the
But we're
cusp.
okay with that. We're okay with it being stalled.
We're okay with it being stalled because we know we already have a lot of meat on the bone, right? We got a lot of meat on this bone. 97% of the meat on the bone is because of the man you're seeing down there, Jesse, the man broke.
And then I went and fucking hired him.
Yeah, I'm the one. I'm
He killed the
Ruined
project.
yeah,
ruined it all.
I'm 1.5%, and the other 1.5% is we're just waiting on some things. We ran into some hurdles where I'll just put it like it is. Our devs have gone silent. They've gone a little bit radio silent, and that's
rogue. It's gone rogue.
They've gone rogue, right? So, and I know like what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, if you don't have devs, you don't have a project. And I'd say you might be right. You might be right. But what I would say is that I've learned. I love learning, by the way. And what I've learned when you're engaging in a software project is that the quote unquote, I'm going to step into my world right now. I don't want to offend anybody. The direct labor is highly skilled. And when you have highly skilled direct labor, you got to bend. You got to change how you come at them because they're like, look, man, I could catch this football at the professional level for anybody and make big money. So if you don't come at me correct and make sure that the person is throwing the football in my hand correctly, I'm going to go somewhere else where they are throwing the football in my hand correctly. And this is something that I learned hard when it comes to devs. And if you are listening and managing a team of devs, you've got to spend the time to get to know the people because they're super duper highly skilled. And at any moment's notice, we'll give you a giant middle finger, either on purpose or accidentally, and not care whatsoever, right? Because it's not going to make any waves in their sea. So the project is stalled because our devs have gone rogue, but probably for good reasons. They're like, well, if I want to work on this, I'm not going to work on this project for free. I'm going to work on something that I want to work on that actually makes money, right? So that's where we're at. And with that, DAO was a collective of talent and people that were all essentially working for free. Jesse was working for free. I was working for free. And that's how most startups start. But that DAO is not a business, right? So you can't just work for free. Like it doesn't work that way. So we're trying to figure out a strategy to get the devs working. And that's where we're at.
Jesse, and you want to help with the project, there's some Discord bot integration I think that's left to pick up, and then maybe running a mint. And then that gets us to a certain point. But at this point, like I've pulled away from that and I'm helping Corey with status stuff. So
yeah.
Yep.
And I'm learning how to talk to devs in a
They're
way
fun.
that it gets them excited. It gets them, like, hey, what are you typing on today, man? Hey, what's
fun.
what you been doing on the internet lately, bud? Got some, watching YouTube videos? No? Okay, cool. All right. Like you gotta find a way to appeal to the devs. So read a lot on Stack Overflow and make coding jokes. I'm trying to figure it out. Honestly, I'm lost. But we'll get there. What else? Oh, let's get back to the housekeeping part. Before Kendrick Lamar. After that. And that. Okay, no more pictures. Just click the make the pictures go away button. All right. There we go. We got Hashing It Out, which is around the corner to actually start next month. We're really excited to present, this evolution, and we've been podcasting now for 7 years. Wow, yeah, 7 years. 7 years officially in like 2 weeks, actually.
Which is the first interview be?
If we have one, but I think
let's interview each other.
No, we've been doing that for like months now.
All right, fine.
We
Hashing
need
it
to-
out is already a show. And it's not like shit's starting out of nowhere. So
All
you
right,
get better at
fine.
it.
Well,
Yeah,
who do you want to interview?
I think we need a good interview. I submitted this team, Corey, that I think you know of actually. It's like this team of PhDs that will audit your tokenomics and like make sure that they're not stupid. It's a team of like 6 PhDs in
Prism
economics.
Group?
Yeah, that's the one.
I know them.
I feel like we should get somebody from there. And
Sure.
we should say, like, hey, obviously tokenomics is a lot more complicated than people like just like when I say tokenomics to some people, they're like, oh yeah, make 5 million tokens and divide it by however many people. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's a lot more complicated than that. I'm pretty sure it's a lot more complicated than that. So we could get somebody on from Prism Group, hopefully. Sorry on that.
I'll
And-
contact Guido.
Hey, the name's Guido. Hey.
That's the CEO. So
Okay.
yes.
You think he talks like
That's
that?
his name.
It'd be funny if he talks. Hey, my name's Guido. I'm here to talk
That is
about
not what he sounds like.
tokenomics. Okay, let's talk about it.
That's
All right.
definitely not what he sounds like, but it would be awesome if it was.
How many tokens you got over there? What you working with? 5 million tokens? I don't know. That's how Guido talks. Anyways, sorry. Let's get back to it. Hashing out, starting up. It's gonna be a little more serious than that. We're trying to go down a much more technical route and appeal to that 1% that we talk about. Every massive cycle, a bunch of people flood in. Some of them are Matt Damon. But then on the other end of the Matt Damons, there's that dude or woman that's like, hey, this stuff is actually really cool. There's a lot of stuff that this could solve. I'm actually going to get interested in this for the tech. And it's usually that person who stays in long enough and learns enough to be in it for the tech and drive a Lambo. I'm just being honest with you. That's the reality. It's because they figure out how it works. And all of a sudden, they're the plumbers in a world where no one knows how to plumb. So we're going to take that path. Hashing it out .stream is the website you can currently go to look at what's up there. Right, get acclimated with the type of conversation that you're going to be hearing. Of course, it's the old host. It's Corey and the old host, co-host, Colin Couché. Some of you know Mr.
For a while,
Couché.
I had a few more, but they dropped off. So
Some of you don't. And they were hashing out panels, but nevertheless, hashing it out is getting revitalized. So, is there anything I'm missing at all? That's pretty much everything. Let's riggedy wrap. Kendrick Lamar, shout out to you for having that amazing rap video a week ago and showing the world that you can rap about things they don't quite understand. Okay, next. Shout out to, I can't really see that, but okay. Shout out to Thor and Thor. All right. Oh yeah! Shout out to Macho Man Randy Savage. Oh yeah, isn't he dead? He's got to be dead. He lived.
gotta
a
be
long
dead.
life.
There's no way he's alive.
And shout out to old long neck and wide smile. I'm gonna miss giving you shout outs, girl. I hope
Avatar
one day,
3.
I hope 2 and 3.
3. Wait, is it 3 that's coming out
Did
soon?
you see the meme that was like, Avatar was cool and all, but did nobody realize that it was just a man who sacrificed an entire planet so he could clap some alien cheeks? I was like, oh wow, yeah, I guess so. I mean, I would have too. We're talking about
Worth
Zoe
it.
Saldana here. Talking about 10-foot tall Zoe Saldana with telepathic ponytail sex. Would you not? I would.
Alicia
That's
says
the show.
there will be 4 more films. Avatar 5.
Jeez.
Oh, it's a lot of blue people.
They need to make one for adults. We need to know more about that telepathic ponytail. All right. That's all we got, y'all. We hope you enjoyed today's show. Play the outro.